Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to do an introduction to the play A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. The play A Doll's House is a naturalistic problem play based on the social reality of the 19th century European society. It deals with the problem of crisis of the traditional marriage based on domination of women by men and women's position as a possession of man. This is the picture of Henrik Ibsen. He was born in 1828, died in 1906. In A Doll's House, which is a modern drama, found its typical form, but it was Nora and her rebellion which caused the play to become a universal sensation. Nora is the central character, the protagonist of the play, and it was soon translated into several European languages, and it was staged in theatres as far flung as South America and Australia. It was explained and attacked in newspapers, periodicals, books. It was condemned from pulpits and discussed by lawyers. What made people most angry was that Nora leaves her husband and 3 children, and in several German theatres the final act was changed, so that she chooses to stay. Nora chooses to stay. Nora chooses to stay back. In order to prevent even worse falsification, Ibsen himself prepared a revised version to provide a happy ending. Later, he regretted this, saying that actually it was for the sake of the final scene that he had written the whole play. With its original ending, that is, with Nora's exit from her home, A Doll's House has received worldwide publicity and greater fame than any other play by Ibsen. And Ibsen, as you all know, is known as the father of modern drama. He was the first one to start writing realistic and problem plays. It has revealed a strange power, this play, to stimulate an audience to discussion, and this in widely differing times and places. Henrik Ibsen is known as the father of modern drama, realism, in most of the Eastern and Western drama. Before Ibsen, all dramatists followed romantic convention. Ibsen, for the first time, introduced problem play. A Doll's House is a problem play or a thesis play like most of his other works. It presents the real problem of society to the audience and to the reader. The problem Ibsen has presented in the drama is the position of women in relation to her husband and her home. The play shows that if a married woman depends on her husband blindly, the consequences may be disastrous. The woman gradually reveals her existence and she wants to emancipate herself from the bondage of a conventional moralist. The play explores deep into the theme marriage. Ibsen favored Nora and he wanted to make his contemporary women aware of the situation. The implied message of the drama is that women no longer are content to be treated as pets and skylarks, protected sex objects, and dependent dolls. Through different activities and writings, Ibsen was in favor of women's independence, a theme which was recurrent in those days. The play deals with a predicament in which a married woman finds herself on account of the excessive control which her husband exercises upon her. The situation or the theme of the play was very appropriate for the 19th century Europe. A woman was reduced in size by her conventional society. In the drama, the husband is reduced in size and the lesson was taught to the society. She also defers him. The woman is dedicated to seek her rights, whereas the size of the duty to her family is reduced. The main aim of the play was to establish the fact that a woman should be allowed to establish her identity and develop her own individual existence. Nora was treated not like a human by her husband, rather, she is fooled by using child talk and endearing expression. He addresses her like a pet and he uses the word pet many times. For him, she is a little skylark or a frisking squirrel. All the household rules are laid down by him. He suggests her not to be a spendthrift. He forbids her eating macaroons and he is against borrowing money. It seems as if Nora has no desires and wishes, but by pointing at Nora's father's weaknesses and also those of Krogstad's, he seems to be a strict moralist. He had formed a dominant psychology on Nora, therefore she trembles even to think of the forgery before him. She is afraid of poisoning her children, but Nora had always shown her fidelity and devotion towards her husband. She respected and loved him so much that she even borrowed money secretly for the treatment of her husband and pretended that her father had given it to her. She was proud to save his life, but she didn't know the law would find her guilty. She did all this out of love and devotion and innocently. On the other hand, she was not in line lover for Helmer. She believed in Helmer's love for her too. When Krogstad threatens her with the possibility of being guilty of forgery, she trembled with fear that Helmer would take the whole guilt upon himself and he would risk his life to save hers. But all that went wrong. When he came to know about forgery, instead of sympathizing with Nora, he became furious at what she did and held her responsible for her own dream. At this, Nora suddenly realizes that her husband was selfish and she had to confront danger alone when a situation occurred. The convention has taught Helmer to regard Nora as his property. Nora also believes that her husband loves her amorously only so far as she will retain physical fitness and beauty. So both Nora and Helmer had developed an artificial love, not a true one depended upon mutual understanding. In this way, Nora is about to leave her house is a big question to the readers. They have to decide whether she was right or wrong, whether she was natural or unnatural in taking a bold decision. The signification of the slamming of the door in a doll's house is a very important issue and it should be discussed. The slamming of the door bears paramount significance in the play Nora, the protagonist of Ibsen's much discussed play. A doll's house is a developing character. In the earlier half of the play, we see her as a submissive wife and dutiful mother. As she knows her husband more, she becomes aware of his own position and self-conscious. All her life she has lived according to her husband's will with no sense of self. Her patronizing and domineering husband is a representative of the patriarchal society. Her slamming the door at the end of the play is thematically significant because it symbolically stands for Nora's revolt against her husband and by extension a slap in the face of patriarchy. Nora was dominated and controlled by her father before marriage, and afterwards her husband was the agency for dominating her. Helmer never treated her as equal. He treated her as his chattel. She existed for her husband. However, she had always expected that her husband would come to aid when she will be in trouble. She had been waiting for miracles to happen in Krogstad's case too. She had the fear that the villain would expose everything and their family would be undone. Contrary to her expectation, her husband behaved like a hypocrite, concerned more with morality and a notion of social prestige, not with his wife's welfare and care. He came out in his true colors. Nora realized that her husband didn't see her as an individual, but only as a wife and mother. She knew what her husband was like. She wanted to dissolve her ties with him by abandoning him and the children. She thought her duty towards herself was above her duty as a mother and wife. Her status as a non entity was a product of the functioning of patriarchy. She wanted to educate herself and establish her own identity. Slamming the door is the explosion of her energies against patriarchy. It's a challenge to patriarchy. It's a bold act of revolt against male domination. The crux of the whole play hinges on this single incident. It is an individual's search for freedom. It signifies that a lady who realizes the necessity to cultivate her full identity must be ready to sacrifice even an atom of care and concern for her children and husband. Motherly duty, the instinct of motherhood, and unconditional love for her husband are the real obstacles on the path to cultivate an identity for those ladies who are rebellious. To slam the door is to turn a deaf ear to the call of motherly duty. Maternal privilege blocks the progressive march towards the formation of identity. A lady in whom a feminist awakening has come must battle against the fascinating call of motherhood. To slam the door is a tantamount to discarding maternal and family role. To slam the door means to decide to rise above the temptation of baser impulses like feelings and affections. To slam the door is to slam the metaphoric door of love, sentiment, and affection. To slam the door is to prepare to open the new door of identity and individuality. To slam the door means to encourage the conscious women that women should partake of active revolt against male dictatorship. The actual significance of the slamming of the door lies in the presentation of the fact that even such ignorant and submissive wife, Nora, goes to the level of launching an active revolt against male domination and dictatorship. Its metaphoric significance emerges from the fact that the slamming of the door stands for the optimistic emergence of a new revolution that is called feminism. Dear students, this much for today. We will continue with themes, plot, structure, and the significance of a doll's house in modern drama in the next few videos. Thank you.